Inspections, master the inspection process. So this is where the rubber meets the road in our business. Probably about half of our deals that fall apart or deal with inspection issues. Probably half of those deals, probably more than half of the deals that fall apart because of inspection issues, they didn't have to. We're responsible in one way or another as agents. And this is why the very first one I have up there is conversations before the inspection happens. Usually some point before you start showing houses. It might happen after you start showing houses, but it really should happen in what's called a buyer's consultation. When you sit down with the buyer somewhere and you explain your responsibility and your value, the word inspection should come up, and it should sound something like this. Look, I recommend you get an inspection of the house we're going to buy. The price range and type houses that we're going to be looking at, I can promise you there's going to be issues. The good inspectors can find 20 to 40 things wrong with any house. Most of those things are going to be maintenance items you have with any house in that age group. As long as you live there, you're going to constantly be maintaining stuff every year that you have to maintain or the house will overtake you. And so the question becomes, what's maintenance items and what's inspection items that are actual defects? And so I kind of plant that seed with them for them to understand that as we go looking, we finally get something under contract and we're setting up the inspection. I want you to understand, before we do the inspection, we're looking for the items that are actual defects. I had gone so fast sometimes I forgot to have this conversation with some of my buyers. And I realized the day of the inspection when the inspector was there with their mom, whoever they're there with that's much smarter than me, and the inspector blowing up every little thing that's going on, I'm like, I've lost complete control. I forgot to have the consultation with them about the inspection. It's my fault. Now, I've been able to save some of those deals, but usually when I got to save them, I had to do a lot of begging of the listing agent. I know it shouldn't be on there, but had to do a lot of groveling to get the deal to come together because I didn't do my job up in the beginning, sitting down with the party that you're working with to explain to them how the inspection process works. There's this word called reasonable. It's all over our offer to purchase contract. What's reasonable? It's an attorney term. It's all over not just Indiana license law, but it's also all over law in general. When you're determining someone's guilt, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Are they guilty? Beyond a reasonable doubt. And what's this word reasonable mean? It's a big line, by the way. There's a lot of interpretation to it by a lot of different people, and if you don't believe that, look back to how we elected our president in 2000. When our president got elected in the year 2000, because the state of Florida had a lot of issues with their voting machines, and went through the court system for months, and finally it went all the way up to the Supreme Court for them to decide who the president of the United States was going to be. And by a vote of 5-4, George Bush became president of the United States. Because of this word reasonable, the interpretation of the law. So when you look at your contracts and you see the word reasonable, which it's on there several times, and it's right in the inspection part, the seller must do repairs to the buyer's reasonable satisfaction. Verbatim, that's what it says. So you need to have a dialogue with your buyer before you show them the house, certainly after you show them the house, before you write the offer to purchase, certainly before you go to the inspection, you better have had that conversation, because once you're at the inspection and you have lost all control, it's hard to regain it. That's number one. Gain control before you show the first house. Number two, what does buying or selling a home as is really mean? Oh my gosh. The lucky people that have watched me teach in class before talking about the as-is addendum. I've actually taken the contract in front of class on the offer to purchase where it says as-is, and I take my pen and I scratch it out. I wish it was removed from the contract. Here's why. You understand, I started in 95. In 95, that term only came up on foreclosed houses. And it came up on the bank-owned houses, their contracts. Wasn't on our standard contracts. Back in 95, when you helped a buyer buy a foreclosed house, you had to use the mortgage company's contracts. And it would say right on there, it wouldn't just say as is, it would say as is, where is. The buyer's accepting this house. Or no inspections. When you bought that house, you did your own inspection already, visually. Then you wrote the offer and got accepted. Supposedly got it for a really good price because you're taking on this tremendous risk. But there were no inspections. You went to the closing table without an inspection. That was in 1995. Now, shortly thereafter, the mortgage companies decided to play nice, and they started adding to their contracts. They would say, Buyer has 10 days or 12 days to get inspections done. They're buying it as is, we're not doing anything, but you have 10 to 12 days to figure it out, whether or not you're going forward or not. I suppose somebody got sued in there somewhere. So the mortgage companies thought they had to play nice and give them some opportunity. Even when that happened, I'm going to say that happened probably in 97 or 98. The first time I saw it, I went, as is, inspections, it's an oxymoron. You're not buying a house as is when you're still doing inspections. It's been true then, it's still true today. So I think about 10 years ago, we decided to add this phrasing to our contracts as they are now. In the offer to purchase, buyer has the right to waive inspections, they have the right to reserve inspections, and they have the right to buy houses as is, see attached as is addendum, which clearly states once the inspection is done, the buyer has two options, either proceed forward to closing or walk away. I can't tell you how many times, especially on houses that I've listed that has an estate sale. Quite often when you have an estate sale, the people are left over, don't really want to mess with the house, and they'll say something like this to me. Dan, I want to sell the house as is. I don't want to mess around with any repairs. This is an objection I have to overcome. It goes like this. Oh, I totally understand. If I was in your shoes, I'd say the same exact thing. I wouldn't want to mess around with any repairs either. However, let me make sure you clearly understand, because I can promise you most of these people don't know how it actually works now. In the old days, when they sold their house as is, they knew there were no inspections. So I let them know. I said, so just so you know, if I list it as is, when the offer to purchase comes is, it's going to say, see the as is addendum. Buyer's buying it as, see the as is addendum, which says the buyer still gets to do inspections. When the inspection's done, if they don't like what it says, they can leave and walk away and they get their earnest money back. And I can tell you guys, when I say this to most sellers, almost all of them go, what? So, sorry, what? I'm sorry. I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? And they're like, no. I say, here, let me make a better suggestion to you. Let's take that off the table. So I like playing Texas Hold'em poker, so I love and understand how to play it. So like playing your cards, don't play your cards yet. Hang on to the cards, keep them close to you, let the inspection happen, then decide which cards to play. If you don't want to fix anything at that time, just say you're not going to do any of it. Every house, by the way, guys, whether you say it or not, whether it's on the offer to purchase or on the listing, every house can be sold as is. You don't have to advertise it. Let the buyer get to that point. Look at the inspection report. What if the inspection report says the radon's high? It's a $1,000 fix. Maybe the seller doesn't live in a house that has radon that's high. You're going to terminate the contract over this? You should get it fixed immediately. Take it to the closing table, spend that $1,000 out of your proceeds, and close the deal. Instead of just walking away, oh, I sold the house as is. Some buyers will pay more for the house for that radon to be fixed. Negotiate the deal. Our job, I'm going to tell you, I shouldn't say this. I'm going to tell you why I believe. I'm going to tell you why I believe this is on our offer to purchase. Forms committees meet several times a year, at least once a year, twice a year, because I've been on them. They're fun to be on. If you've never been on a forms committee, I would highly recommend it. So get on the forms committee, you look at the forms, how can we improve the forms? You know, every year when the new forms come out, there's quite a few changes to them. That's why. And they make the suggestions, they take it to the real estate attorney. The real estate attorney draws it up so it's legally binding. I believe, honestly, I believe this was added for the benefit of the agents. Because I know as agents practice, what agents want to do today, which I fully support, is make their business duplicatable as much as possible. How easy can I make this business be for me so I can do as many transactions each year and do as little work as possible and get to the closing table? So when you have listing agents listing houses as is everywhere, all they know is when that inspection is done, either we're going forward or we're starting over. And that's all they care about. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not illegal. It's obviously legal. But I think we get paid a tremendous amount of money for what we do. And I think there's been an attempt, from my perspective, to make our job easier and skirt some of that responsibility. I think it's the most important part of the transaction, the inspection is. It's where you really matter. It is where the rubber meets the road. It's where you got to renegotiate the deal. And when that inspection is done, you're going, oh, we sold it as is. What are you doing? And you don't care how to keep the deal together. So I think that's why it remains on there. If I had any kind of authority, it needs to go. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. So